I give you here, it's not legal advice. It's guidance from one information security professional to you. This is also all my own recommendations. I'm active duty Air Force here at Dyess Air Force Base. I've been given the privilege to come and speak with you. I have a Master's of Science in Cybersecurity. I have about 4 years experience in information security and intelligence, two separate but related career paths. So I appreciate the introduction. Gives me a little bit of an idea of what kind of a group I'm talking to. I'm going to keep this high level enough that this should apply to everybody. But I would like to know who are you in the context of information security. So if you don't know the answer to any of these questions, that's totally okay. But for right now, could you raise your hand if your business has an information security program? Great. I'm glad to see that over in the back. I'd be frightened otherwise. Now, how about if you have partial oversight over your business's information security program? Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to guess then we don't have too many people who have direct oversight, excluding. And the last one I do want you to pay attention to, though, that's that are you ultimately responsible for your information security in your business? Everybody who owns a business is ultimately responsible for the information security in that business. That doesn't mean you need to have a program. It's very, very, very dependent on exactly what facet of information that you work with and how, and we're going to get into that in just a bit. So what is information security? This is a Wikipedia level definition. I'm going to break it down really easily. It's the prevention or mitigation of unauthorized or inappropriate, and get ready for this, access, disclosure, disruption, deletion, corruption, modification, or surveillance of information. What's that mean? Yeah, so that means we don't want bad things to happen to the information that you work with. I'm going to use the word information. I'm going to use the word data. I'm generally talking about what you have on your computer, but if this seems applicable to something that might be sitting on your desk, it is. That being said, what are we going to do today? This is not about hackers. I want to let you guys know that right now. I'm not really talking about cybersecurity in the context of the scary things you hear on the news. That is high impact for most of us here today, low probability. What I'm talking about is that we're looking at information and the data that you use and that you absolutely rely on to get your job done as a facet of risk management and how risk management needs to be applied in the context of your data. We'll be conducting risk identification. So trying to figure out, and I'm going to let you guys figure it out individually, and we'll talk about it if you bring it up. But what are your digital assets? What are you worried about making sure you have and making sure you don't lose access to, and making sure maybe you don't give somebody else access to? And what we won't be doing, and this is important, that we're not going to be conducting a risk assessment. So hopefully when you leave here, you'll have a better idea of what it is that you need to make sure is secure or is redundant. If you lost it, you could pick up another copy of it. You could print out another one, but we won't be figuring out the impact of what happened if you lost it. That's something I'm going to urge you to think about on your own. Now, please interrupt me with any questions you have throughout the briefing. I realize there may be a lot of them. I'm prepared for that. I also realize that different businesses, different roles, different responsibilities are going to warrant a very, very, very different level that this information hits you at. And without further ado, first thing I want to talk to you about is what are your digital assets? Now, digital asset, you can almost scrap the word digital and put information, but again, it's easiest to think of in the context of computers. So your assets, you know what your business assets are. You know what you couldn't go a day without. If you own a business, you probably have a building. You probably need to get into that building. Your customers probably wouldn't have anywhere to go for that business if they didn't have a building. Maybe you work from home and that's not the case. For your digital assets, I want to know, does your business operate from one or multiple computers? I'm going to phrase this in a question format so we can all think about it individually. Maybe if you work from home, you have one computer. Maybe you have two, you have three. Maybe if you have a larger enterprise, all of your employees have computers. But where are they located? I want you to think about whether they're home. I want you to think about whether they're behind a locked door. I want you to think about whether you take it back with you home from the office or whether somebody else could, or whether somebody else has access to it. Do you have business critical information on your computers? Some of you might not. Some of you might operate from a business level where you handle emails, and those emails are up on Gmail, so you could access them from anywhere, and that's it. But either way, where is that business critical information stored? Now, these last 2 points I want you to really look at. I'm going to stress them because they are the highest impact. I'm not going to calculate impact with everybody here, but if you work with customers' personally identifiable information, if you store information that involves anything regulatory or has any legal liability associated with your industry or your field, that's what we really need to pay special attention to. I want you to think about if you have credit card numbers stored somewhere. I want you to think if you have full names and dates of birth, maybe even social security numbers, something that the person giving you money would be very, very, very upset if you couldn't lose. And then flip it. What would happen, and here's that threats to your digital assets, what happens if that information we're talking about, if those credit card numbers, if those customer files, if that employee information maybe, what happens if that goes missing? Can you do business for a day without knowing where your product, where your industry is shipping, sending, contacting, who's supposed to be receiving, how much money they're supposed to be giving you and when? If you cannot live without that, that's critical. And then you have to figure out for a day, for a month, for a year. So I want you to think about who has access to your business's computers. Again, we're not talking about hackers. We're not talking about religious. Could you raise your hand if you've ever accidentally deleted something from your computer and not known how to get it back? Okay, great. Information security. So I want you to think about where that customer personally identifiable information has been stored. Same thing with the legal, regulatory, anything. That's going to be very, very specific to each individual here. If you don't know where it's stored, that's a problem. If you know where it's stored and it's stored in one place and you don't know if you lost it, could you get it back? That's a problem. We'll talk about some solutions to that in a little bit, but what I ultimately want you to be thinking about here is, if I lost it, what happens next? How do I get it back? Do I get it back? And especially, what happens in the meantime? There you go. What happens to your information if your computers are damaged or missing? Anyone ever here break a computer, drop a laptop, spill some water on the keyboard, everything fries? Great. It happens. It's happened to me too. Again, if you have something in your Gmail, you go log onto your friend's computer. You click it open, maybe you have another one in the house, but if that was right there on the drive and it only belonged in one computer ever, it might be rough. So when you think about the value of a computer, I don't want you to think about how much you bought it for on Amazon. This, I'd wager this is probably about an $800 or $900 computer. It's a really nice computer. But it's not worth $800 or $900. The value of this is the data that's on it. That $800 or $900 is just it's a placeholder. But if you have information on that over the cost of one day that you couldn't do business would cost you $2,000 in profit, it's starting to look like a $2,800 computer. So we know how to, we've heard this before, right? Backing things up. We're going to talk about it in a little bit, but there's a straightforward solution. It's not a techie solution. It probably doesn't require the help of just about anybody. And then lastly, I just want to ping here, what happens to your information if the original data you work with is lost? That's backing things up, not just on a separate area, but I hate to say it, but that's making sure that you're saving your PowerPoint presentation before you close it out. That's making sure that you think about, a lot of the programs now, they do it for you. They do it immediately. Every couple seconds you see saved, saved, saved. That's great. If it's not saved, you have a problem. So I want you to think about that. All right. Is your data backed up? Now, Mike, I know you asked me very specifically if I could do a little bit about backing up data and a little bit about the cloud. The mysterious, the majestic cloud. So this is about if your data is backed up. This is the easiest solution to your problems. This is something every single person can go home and do. If your computer or its components are unavailable, we talked about that. Where is it located? So you can back things up on DVDs and CDs. I really wouldn't recommend it. You can probably get one of those little USB flash drives. $20, $30 today. That'll get you enough storage to save probably all the Microsoft Word documents and Excel spreadsheets you work with. That's an easy move. That's a smart one. You copy it right over when you're done with it. You remember to do it on Monday mornings or Friday nights, and there you go. The cloud is what we'll go to next. But I want you to remember that when you have data that's backed up, you want to care about how regularly you back it up, and then you want to care about where that backup is located, because you can lose the USB drive, and then you've lost the backup. Who is responsible for backing up your data? Now, when I talk about this, I'm not talking about the home business owner. I'm talking about you have an employee, and you need to make sure that in a larger enterprise, the credit card numbers are saved. The Excel spreadsheets with the customer information is all well and good. So who's responsible for backing up your data, and do they know it? Please remember that. I see some people are laughing. We all know it, though. You have your data custodian. They're your IT guy. Maybe they're really somebody separate. They're the person at the front desk, and they just need to make sure that they've got that contact information of the customer all saved and written down. It's the same thing as asking somebody to take a message for you, right? Hey, so-and-so called. Cool, do we have a callback number? Nope. That's going to be helpful later. So I want you to think about who is responsible for backing up your data in your organization. Maybe it's you. Raise your hand if it's you. Okay, raise your hand if you've got an employee who does that. Thanks, sir. That's me, by the way. All right, and then the segment into the most exciting part. Do you use a cloud storage service? Now, what's a cloud? I want you can repeat with me, mentally, verbally, anything. There is no cloud. It's just someone else's computer. And I don't blame you, because honestly, it's a weird word to describe really what is storing something on someone else's computer. But watch this. How many people here use Gmail as the primary means of communicating with your customers? Okay. How many people use some other commercial email service? Okay. So you probably know this, but your computer didn't have to download that email. The Gmail web application that you're talking to your customers and coworkers through, that's on somebody else's computer, somewhere that they probably don't even want you to know where it is. That's not yours. You're using it. And that's what cloud is. That's all cloud is, actually, is it's storing your stuff on other people's stuff. And I want you to think about that, because who here uses Google Drive as a part of their business? Okay, yeah. It's good, right? You can just go and click, and you don't have to worry about it, because if your USB fries or if your computer falls in the toilet, then who cares? You've gotten up on Google Drive. No, that's it. There you go. That's the kind of solution that the world is moving to. I'm telling you right now, it would be silly if we were in 2019 having a conversation about why you need to download Gmail onto your computer so your email can function. And then every time your computer breaks or fails or you get a new one, it's ridiculous. So we're all moving to cloud. We as in everything computer-oriented. It's so much so that those of us who go and get education and certification in this, we can't do so without understanding at least a little bit about cloud. And the people who work with that stuff on the other end, they're the specialists of the specialists. That is its own industry. So I want you to think about cloud as what I will maybe timidly or very lightly recommend as a primary means of storage. Will the USB drive work? Yeah, it'll work. But it's probably a lot easier to click and drag something right into your Google Drive, or to work from your Google Drive, and then you know it's there. All right, do we have any questions thus far? I told you to interrupt me. That's a great question. So when we talk about that secure, there's that information security, like will it fail? Will all their servers fail and you lost all your stuff? Probably not. And then there's the hacker, the stuff you see on the news. My best advice to you is that it's important.
When I worked in a law firm, one of the lawyers I worked with, he would only use flash drives.
There is absolutely the question of whether cloud and storing your stuff with somebody else is safe. The bottom line is that these devices aren't meant to be safe. I would wager that you have a much higher probability of losing your USB drive than Google does of having its drives raided by hackers. Again, there's no such thing as risk prevention. Otherwise, we wouldn't call it risk management. So that's the question that we need to, really, we'd call it risk prevention. It'd be done. But there's no such thing as risk prevention. There's no such thing as a scenario here where we're absolutely perfect. Anything else?
Where would emails and phone numbers of people fall in as far as personal information? Is that any legal liability or anything like that?
I would actually refer to your industry, because it can vary. What I like to say on that note is the legal regulatory stuff is up to lawyers. From a business owner's perspective, without the lawyers, what do you think your customer base cares about you storing this? So if you have their credit card numbers written down in a notebook, that might be a different idea than, yeah, we process it through Visa or MasterCard or however, right? Does that answer the question? Sort of? Yeah. I won't answer questions that I don't know the answer to, or I won't give you information I'm not totally speaking forward with.
If what you could do for the sake of audio here, when somebody asks a question, could you repeat the question?
Oh, wonderful.
Otherwise, it won't pick up the question over here.
Copy. Can we start that from the next question?
Oh, absolutely.
Great. Great.
Well, isn't like Google Drive, different cloud stores, isn't there also a question of who owns the data?
Absolutely.
On that computer?
Absolutely. There are terms and conditions about that. I imagine that the information you're working with, if you're storing a customer's address, for instance, I don't think that you have a concern as to whether Google thinks that they're going to own the list of customer addresses. This is all to be taken in stride. I would hope that before jumping to any of this, and I actually want to talk about that at the very end, but I have a slide of what not to do. And I promise that'll cover quite a bit in that. Actually, we're getting there. So, sure. No. I'm here for you. I didn't think I heard the question enough to repeat it, actually.
Is Google pretty good at manipulating data influence customers or political process?
Copy. Is Google good at manipulating data and for the purpose of politics?
As well as
Got it. I'm just about as far away as from a representative at Google as you can get, but I don't really know their process. What I do know is that Google is used as a storage solution, a search solution, just about an everything solution today. There are plenty of other cloud storage solutions. I'm not personally recommending Gmail or Google Drive. I'm not personally recommending any of them as this is the one you should use. I imagine that if you go and look up the best, the most secure, the most affordable, the most functional cloud storage drive, you'll get a long list that are not attached to international entities like Google.
What's your take on having multiple companies that offer cloud services?
Utilizing what's my
as a way of either ensuring that if there's a hack or there's a problem, you can instantaneously work, as well as looking at the budget.
Absolutely. So, question repeat, what's my take on utilizing multiple cloud storage solutions as a means of, I'd like to call it redundancy, making sure that your data's in one place, and if it fails there, then your data's in another. That's best practice. That's best practice. I don't think there's really any question about that. Cloud storage solutions, sure. As opposed to multiple USB drives, I'd prefer it. But yeah, multiple cloud storage solutions in addition to your own computer. If you want to know what I do, because I walk around, and I sometimes have data like stuff I've written for school or stuff I've written for here or there, personal use, but I don't want to lose it. There's a cloud storage solution. It's also on my computer. I've got another drive that I can bring from home. But multiple cloud storage solutions, yeah, it's not only not unheard of, multiple storage solutions in general from different avenues. That's best practice for making sure that if something happens on one end, then you're clear on the others. All right. Oh, what do you do now? All right, so again, this is who here likes pumpkin pie? We're coming up from the holidays with pumpkin pie, right? Yeah? I saw a hand or two. My hand's up too, don't worry. This is not a sliver of the pie. This is a crumb from the crust. Well, I could sit here with you guys for hours and discuss this, but this is not my intention. I want to introduce you to a subject with something that you can all take away and use today. I want to take kind of the environment that you work in, wherever it is, and apply it to there. Maybe the environment you're studying in or studying for, or the place that you're going to be. What I want you to think about now, especially if you're a business owner, do conduct a risk assessment on the digital assets you identify today. Okay, so you figured out what. Next is to figure out why and how much. You figure out the impact. You figure out what would happen if I lost this for a day. That way, you can, after you've evaluated their impact, you can prioritize your resources. Do you want to have a budget to make sure that this works? You might not need one. But if you do, how do you prioritize those resources? And what is your means to secure the assets from permanent or from unsustainable loss? Do consider what information security means to your business. Like I said, this is so high level that one person might be working with things that they legally are responsible for keeping in a specific place for a specific period of time. How long are you supposed to retain that? For others, this might just be a means of making sure that the Excel sheets and the Word documents and the PowerPoint slides all make their way to where they need to be when they need to be there. And then lastly, do consider the questions presented here as a very small step. That's exactly what I opened this with. So information security is a broad subject. It spans multiple kinds of careers. And if you need help, there are professionals all over the world who've got different kinds of help. Some of it's stuff you can do for yourself. Sometimes it's worth consulting. And more importantly, what do you not do now? I think this is the biggest step. You're going to see this on the news every single day that you look hard enough. This place got hacked. You heard of Capital One. You're going to hear of everywhere else. The systems we're using to store and process and transmit this information are not meant to be secure. They never were. We're getting better. We're getting a lot better. It's to the point where you could probably just use the Windows Defender that you've got loading onto your computer and you'd probably be good. But I want you to know that when you see this stuff, as it pertains to you individually, your businesses, your information, what happens on a television screen or what happens on your computer screen when you log onto Facebook, that doesn't necessarily impact your business. I want you to always jump back to that risk management perspective. How does this affect me? Maybe it doesn't. So do not scramble to purchase cybersecurity products or services. Big no-no. They're too broad, too specific and specialized that any one of them would solve your problem. Carefully consider how much security your business requires. Does anybody here know the answer to the question, how much security is enough? The answer is just enough. You laugh, but if you have too much security, you're going to reduce the availability of whatever it is that you're trying to get into. Okay, I'll take a volunteer for who'd like to set 40 different kinds of passwords on their Word file. I bet you wouldn't see many people trying to get into it, including you. But you would have to get into it later, and that would create a problem. So how much security is enough? Just enough. And really consider that. And how do you do it? You utilize a cost-benefit analysis. Mike, if you gave me $20, I wouldn't spend $50 to make sure it stayed safe. It's that simple. How much are your assets worth? How much are you going to spend to keep them safe? And also, please do not be intimidated by advancements in technology. The most wise of us in information security and cybersecurity are never people who are my age. They're all people from my parents' generation. I feel the need to say it. There's this sort of rumor, this myth that there's this 14-year-old Russian in Moscow or kid in New York who's going to get into everything. No, the advancements in technology are changes to the literal things that are going on with the computer. Security transcends technology. When you're talking about the security of your information, you're talking about something that hasn't really changed since before there were computers. The concepts are all there. I defined cloud in about 10 or 15 seconds. You don't have to be a cloud expert. So please don't be intimidated by advances in technology as we go through this. And please remember that whatever kind of medium you're working through with digital computer assets, security transcends technology. And with that, I'll take any other questions. Sir?
What do you think about companies like LifeLock and those kind of companies supposed to protect the data?
So what do I think about LifeLock and other companies like that? I don't really speak for the capacity of any. I've actually not heard of LifeLock. I'm going to be totally transparent about that. I think that there are so many different ways at this point for free and paid services to protect your data, and whatever data that is and whatever that means to you. I can't speak on the reputation or the ability of any of those individually. I wish I can give you a better answer, but that's the honest one.
What are some solutions people can use outside of the USB drive for a cloud-based company have their own data servers?
Absolutely.
What would something like that cost? Small scale, medium scale, large scale?
Probably wouldn't recommend the small scale. Small scale is small scale for a reason. It might come at the reliability of that. Small scale, that could probably be a few $100s, or in the low range of thousands of dollars. If you have a larger company, I would hope that your data servers, especially if you use larger customer enterprise level, we'll say database solutions, that'll run you into the thousands or tens of thousands on the higher end. That again, if we're talking about home business, it's probably not what you're looking for, but it's that cost-benefit analysis. If you lost all your consumer information and that was 5,000, 10,000 different customers, if that's that. Where is the point where we need to stop spending money versus where is the point where we can't live without this and we need to spend money to defend it? Any other questions?
I have a question. Outside of just personal discipline and building habits, say for instance, you have an external hard drive, which is basically, my understanding is just a bigger flash drive.
Sure.
So one of the problems I have is disciplining myself to upload it to that external hard drive. And I think what they have, some of those, what they have automatic feature where
It'll be marketed as 40 different things. I've heard it referred to, I think, as a time machine. It's timed backup. Really, really great storage solution. Again, I won't endorse any of them in particular, but if you look up data storage solutions that have time machine options, that's exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, personal discipline is rough. It's rough for me, and I work in it. That's why we automate things. you would hope that you would have to do as little manual labor as you need to with the machine that automates everything it does, right? All right, sir?
I guess I got more of just a comment from my experience.
Sure.
As of last January, because I'm part of a franchise, I was required to purchase cyber insurance. It's a thing now. You're ready for it. It's not cheap. So not only are we having to do that, but we hired someone like you in the civilian sector who's taught me a lot about Google Suite. I mean, we have a whole suite. I'm thinking, hey, if something goes wrong, it's on Google, not me. Well, one, if something hacks my system, deletes all my stuff, well, just because you get Google Suite doesn't mean it's backed up, so you got to pay for backup. Well, then you got to pay for someone to manage that backup and oversee it and get it in your system. So bottom line is, since January and where we're at now, I think we're averaging about 3% of our total revenue is going to cybersecurity. Wow, pretty interesting.
And if I'll echo on that, and again, one of the things to think about is that this isn't just a solution to, and it's a little difficult to say, the terms are used so interchangeably, but cybersecurity typically refers to the idea that someone's going to come and get that information. There's the bad guy, there's the black hat. Those solutions that we're talking about, all of them, they intertwine with the information security that we talk about when you think of losing the laptop or dropping the USB off or just accidentally deleting it. This kind of, the solutions, they intertwine more often than not. And so they are two different subjects, but thankfully you can often kill two birds with one stone. So.
I'm really not a paranoid person. Google and Amazon and all these big companies do these things, they're getting, their own good.
I'll take that as a comment. I'm sure, listen, I'm absolutely sure that you and I would see eye to eye on many things. That being said, I mean, I'm really here as risk advisor / consultancy to different kinds of small businesses. It's outside my range to say. I've never worked at any of them, and but I do know that a lot of people share your concerns. Who do you think owns the microphone? Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
I think that on this last topic about who is listening, how then do we manage like the devices that we have, whether it's the headphones or it's the voice activated remote control and things like that? How do we manage